now where we need to find some ways of breaking through the blockages that are occurring between the West and China.
Equality and mutual respect and mutual trust is the foundation for developing state-to-state relations.
China is 5,000 years of history, so understanding China's policies is key to anybody who has to run a big company or a big government.
48 groups' contribution to China's integration with the rest of the world will go down in history.
There's all sorts of tripwires in China, there's all sorts of tripwires outside China. But if you kind of ask the question, do I get how to do it? Better than most.
Well, as everybody knows, the 48 Group had an extremely important role in opening up business relationships between China and the outside world at a critical point in the history of the West and of China.
I believe that their work in bringing China out and bringing the West in to China is of central importance in the relationship between Britain and China.
This meeting with President Xi was 40 years, the 40 years of reform and opening up. But behind that again lies a much deeper purpose. And what I believe is useful, important, and indeed necessary for us in the West is to understand where China comes from today, particularly the nature of the Communist Party of China, the historical roots of the Communist Party of China, long before it was established in 1921 as the Communist Party of China, and the role that China has played in world history.
And if you ask the question, to what extent is the Communist Party of China continuing the innovations and ideas of 5,000 years of Chinese history? Quite substantially. People would like to think that somehow the single-party state of the Communist Party of China is something that's gone a little bit wrong in Chinese history, and eventually they'll get rid of it and they'll become like everybody else. Well, actually, the history of China is about the role of the successful emperors of taking responsibility for the people of China and giving them the opportunity to develop their economic capabilities and skills. And that is really what the Communist Party of China is about. It's about managing the opening up and the direction of China. Very learned people, very learned people.
If you look back at human history, the periods of greatest success, the periods of greatest prosperity have been when we've had a global connected world. There's nothing new about globalization. It's just that the pace and pattern and speed and ability of human beings to connect with one another has increased logarithmically, not just in the last 20 years, but in the last 5 years. And China's part of that story. China is more connected, more open than ever. More Chinese are traveling abroad, more Chinese are studying abroad, more Chinese are investing abroad. So China's part of that story.
I think, President Xi was very respectful of my father and of the past, and that's very in keeping with the Chinese ways. And he wanted to pay respect to the icebreakers. And he said that this gave the Chinese confidence in the ability of Britain and China to cooperate going forward. And that was a very strong message, that it was an opportunity for the British based on that heritage. When you look at what's happened, even in the 3 months since I had that first meeting and then the second award ceremony, the world has become much more difficult for China. The West has closed in on China and appears to be fearful of China. And we're now in a period of propaganda where a lot of things are being said in order to influence public opinion. But the essence of it is that the West, describe that as the United States, has a great concern that China is trying to take over running the world. My view from years of experience, years of meeting Chinese leaders, years of doing business with China, years of having some unhappy experiences with China, is that that's not where China's going. Remember, I've made money out of business deals by anticipating the direction of China. That's what I specialize in. And my anticipation of the direction of China is they are aimed at being a unique, advanced society and economy by 2050.
So I think we're in a very complicated, difficult era in our development in the West. And so much of the fears of the Communist Party of China is a transference, in psychoanalytic terms, of our own fears to divert these towards an alien entity that we really don't understand very well. Because most people have not been to China. And if they do go to China and they stay in the guest house, it's not a very deep connection with the country. So the proportion of our society that has a deep engagement with China is very, very thin. Almost none of our politicians do. Almost none.
It's a bit idle to sit here and pontificate about what might happen in this next year of the Boer. But if I was to be asked the question, what would I like to happen, is I would like the West to sit down and ask itself, what is really going on? Can we afford to go on pointing fingers at the Chinese and accusing them of being old people trying to hold on to power? Can we afford to carry on saying that the single-party state won't work? The single-party state has worked. That's the reality. And it's not been about old people trying to hold on to power. It's been about the most vibrant state in the world. And we should recognize that, and we should come to terms with it, and we should say, okay, truth be known, Mr. China, we're a little bit worried about you. We think actually you might outperform us over the next 20, 30, 40 years. What we'd like to do now is to sit down and work out a way of managing this world between us in a way that doesn't create conflicts and power. The characterization of the world over the last 5,000 years has been battles for power. And have they been vicious and nasty? Absolutely. Europe has been devastated many times by terrible battles. We have to call it to stop. Why we want to do Brexit now at a time when Europe has been calm for 75 years, I find difficult to understand. Somebody who lost a large amount of my family in the Second World War can't understand why Britain wouldn't want to maintain the European Union for all its faults because of the peace that it's brought. Well, let's take that on to a broader context and talk about how to do that with China and Russia. Are we really going to anticipate that the next 50, 75 years of our lives are going to be spent trying to manage the military threat of China and Russia, or are we better off trying to find formulae that enable us to work together? So that is what I think is the real challenge of the Year of the Boar, is to find the leaders in the West who are able to sit down with the leaders in the East and find the ways forward for humanity.